our YouTube playlist, which we are currently curating, and we'll be sharing the link out to everybody on our listserv in the next week or so. So I'm going to share right now our expectations for the room, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dionysus. So our expectations are: the purpose of PL on the Go sessions are to draw on the incredible strength and expertise that we as a community of educators possess, and to provide a forum where we can share, network, and support each other. Each 1 hour session is designed to inform, inspire, and invigorate you, as well as work, share, and learn together. We will always assume the best of all participants. We will share as no one is the expert, especially in these business unusual times, right? We will participate in the discussions and support each other in our sharing. We will mute our microphones when we are not speaking, and we will turn on our video whenever possible to help build community, and we will have fun. So just a couple things. Again, if you can just open up the chat function, because that's a great place for us to post our wonderings and our thoughts. And also Dionysus has shared some resources in there, and she'll probably share those again throughout, just so everybody has access to them. And then if you would also open up the participants button, which allows you to raise your hand and participate that way. You know, that's probably not that much of an issue, because we do have a nice smaller collegial group. But if you do have a thought or wondering, if you wouldn't mind just clicking the hand up button, and then what I'll do is I'm going to just facilitate from the sidelines. But again, I cannot thank Dionysus enough for being here today. And Brooke is also joining us for Generation Citizen, and they've just been tremendous partners in work. They are an organization that is super passionate about action civics, and we all know that that is a focus of New York State and is kind of on display in the real world right now, as we think about we as citizens are isolating ourselves, right? This is an example of action civics. This is informed action to protect and to better our community. So this is certainly timely, and again, I'm super excited to learn with all of you as well.
I see
So
you.
there you are. Now we can see Lisa. Awesome.
All right.
So I'm going to turn it over to you, Dionysus, and please take it away.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Greg. So I also just want to, in terms of disclaimer, please, if you want to keep connected with us, which we would like you to do, you can drop your email on the chat box. And also I recommend, and I'm going to put that on the chat box, please visit generationcitizen.org, where we have also more information about other potential ideas for you to help your students to continue their civic engagement, even though right now we are in very difficult moments. So thank you all so much for joining us today. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to share my screen and we will start. So let me share my screen first. Okay. And can everyone see it, right? Looking good? Great. So we're going to be talking today about the census. And today, so just you have an idea, we're going to want to do like a small welcome and staff introduction, so you know a little bit more about us. Also about Generation Citizen, we're going to have a small activity. We're going to do like a census overview and the lessons, what is cultural responsiveness in the curriculum and how it looks. Then we're going to look into the lesson materials, and then we're going to have time for questions and answers. So let me see, I see the chat box here. Are people having any questions right now? Okay. So let me see. So just in terms of expectations, we just want to review the importance of participating in the Census 2020 with you, review community outreach efforts that you can do through these lessons, and also how can you review talking about census materials so you can get more acquainted with the resources and have a better understanding of how to use it in the classroom. So without further ado, we would like to introduce ourselves, and Brooke, would you like to go first?
Absolutely. Welcome, everyone. I hope everyone's staying healthy and safe and sane. My name is Brooke Wallace. I'm the program director for Generation Citizen in New York. I might just take this minute to just do a very brief overview. Education nonprofit that started about 10 years ago that partners with middle and high schools to provide civic education in the classroom to really the civic knowledge, skills, and disposition of students, and really letting youth know that there's many ways they can be civically engaged and involved in their community. So when we also do professional development for teachers to implement this in their classroom, and in our curriculum has been implemented in social studies classrooms as well as history, English, debate, even a science classroom. So I definitely encourage you to reach out to us if you want to learn more about how we partner with schools. But so excited to see you all here today.
Thank you, Brooke. So my name is Zaidanis. I'm the alumni manager at Generation Citizen. And in my role, I'm responsible for helping our students to continue their action civics beyond the classroom experience. And because not all students are the same, we provide students with different civic pathways to help them to continue being civically engaged. Because for us, we understand that civics does not end in the classroom. We need to help them to continue that path. And that can look like through attending different civic events, public speaking, serve as a GC ambassador, and also our Community Change Fellowship, which is a 6-week summer internship in which the fellows, they get to work with nonprofits, advocacy organizations, and elected officials in issues that they really care about. And it's really interesting because the fellows that go through this program, they also do professional development. And we provide this opportunity to them so they can have real world experience on how the adults work into these issues that they really care and that are also real in their communities. So I believe Brooke already shared with you a brief overview of our mission and vision. So this is just so you know. But also we do want to show you how our curriculum actually works. So Brooke, do you want to go through the steps?
Sure, absolutely. So each classroom starts by picking a community issue they care about. So for example, if you are a teacher that is teaching PIG, participation in government, and you have 3 sections of that class, each class will build consensus on the one issue they really want to focus on as a class. About local community issues that affect them, affect their families, the people that they love and care about in their community. They then begin to research the issue, cause of this issue, why does it continue to happen, and what are some policy related goals that they can focus on to make long-term systemic change in their community. So really going above and beyond building awareness to thinking about how they can advocate for more funding to get more of X, Y, and Z. Maybe it's their school lacks technology or has a technology from the 80s and they want better, newer equipment and infrastructure. So they are advocating for a budget so that their school can have that. Or it's possible that they want to support a bill or create a bill or make sure a bill is not passed in order to support their issues. So we've had students that supported the bill for local police officers to have body cams and so forth, bills to support banning straws or plastic bags and so forth. And so once they really identify what their policy goal is and research who the decision maker and supporters are and what tactics they want to use, they so they create a plan where they talk about the different tactics they can use for outreach, which can be letter writing campaigns, social media campaigns, testifying, submitting op-eds, presenting their information to decision makers. And then they take action. And that's really where we see the civic motivation really spike, because students are realizing the power that they have to make this change. They're realizing that their local legislators actually work for them and that they can reach out to them. And then there's a point of reflection, just because change does take time. It usually takes longer than a semester. So really providing that framing of, what we've done as a class is really important. And these are ways that we can continue to be civically engaged. And Dairani's, as alumni manager, is supporting students that say, oh, this was amazing, and I want to continue my civic engagement journey outside the classroom, by providing them with opportunities to be on task force, to supporting them with writing and publishing op-eds, or being in panels talking about youth civic engagement and so forth. So that's more or less an overview of our program. And then the image here, you can see we have some students talking to their local council member at City Hall. So for them, and even actually their teacher, it was really an inspiring moment. It was their teacher's first time at City Hall as well. But the fact that they were able to get FaceTime with their council member was something that was really impactful for them.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Brooke. And one of the reasons why we're sharing these steps with you is because these are the foundations of our curriculum, and also how we build the census lessons that we're going to be sharing with you today. So let's start discussing. So one of the questions that we always like to ask all the facilitators is like, why is the census important to you? And how do you want to integrate the census in your community or organization? And I think for the purpose of this call, and because you joined us today, what caught your attention to coming into this this Zoom meeting and like learning more about how to teach students about the census, taking into consideration what we're currently experiencing as a society? Why do we think this is still very relevant and important to have discussions around? We can use the chat box, but since we are a very small group, we can also be muted and we can share our thoughts.
So I think for me, thinking through a social studies lens and thinking, we're in extraordinary times, but as we start to talk about disaster aid being kind of apportioned out, I think that we're going to see how important the census actually plays into our lives. We in New York have been lucky enough in recent years where we haven't had, severe natural disasters that have needed, declarations in the same way that we've seen in other states. But certainly the way that the pandemic is impacting New York, the government is going to look at this data, right? And then they're going to turn over necessary resources and materials based on that data. So we're going to see this play out in real life. So for me, it's an extension of that. And it also has me concerned about our marginalized groups of people who are, routinely undercounted in the census. And I think that, this is going to kind of exacerbate that. I know that there was a big push for a lot of our school districts to offer the opportunity for people to participate in the census, using the computers within the school if people felt unsafe in sharing their information from their own IP addresses. And that's not going to happen now. So I do worry about marginalized groups being undercounted and people not having their voices heard or being represented.
Thank you, Greg, for sharing that. Anyone else would like to share?
I'm just really here to learn. I'm from a district perspective as coordinator of English language arts and social studies, want to know what resources are out there. Just from the framework of your curriculum alone, I'm seeing in some ways a good opportunity for, it's very much kind of a project-based learning kind of framework, and trying to consider opportunities for remote learning, setting students up with a longer term project, I think can be more effective and motivating than sort of day-to-day tasks.
Yes, thank you so much, Adam. And that's such an interesting observation, because one of the very uniqueness of our curriculum, it is that it's project-led, and it's particularly led by the students. One more, and then we can go to the next slide. Anyone else would like to add?
Wanted to say that I think for me, what made me want to take this, besides all the things that Greg already said, is really, and also the remote learning comment is very important. It's a reality now, but I think too that for me it was your second bullet on cultural responsiveness. How I'm not too sure. I think teachers may not of social studies may not always look at it from different lenses. and not understand the hesitation that families and people feel when it comes to the census and their involvement. So really giving teachers the opportunity to understand that more deeply, because in my district in particular, we have a lot of undocumented students, and I'm not too sure, for some teachers this is all very new at this high number. So I think it's just really bringing some of this sensitivity training or cultural responsive training to the teachers as well.
Yeah, and that's a very important piece in the curriculum and the lessons as well. And you'll see examples of how we recommend teachers to actually implement cultural responsiveness. So I'm gonna go to the next slide. And in this slide, we are basically just giving you a brief overview of which the context of each of the lessons and what kind of work will you be doing with the students. The package includes 4 lessons, and in lesson number 1, the students get to dive into what is the census and why it's important that the students understand it and analyze it. They are provided with like copy of questionnaires, and so they can learn about how it may look, and also they have homework to mock census questionnaires to people in their community, and in this case to their families. Lesson number 2 actually dives into the impact of undercount students. And this is a good lesson in terms for the students to visualize why it's important to participate in the hard to count communities and what does that look like in terms of like real life. Students are provided with like documents and research data that they get to see like why hard counts community exists and in what context. Brooke, would you like to add to any of the lessons explanation?
No, I think that was pretty thorough.
Lesson number 3 is where you go to the planning community outreach, because 1 and 2 is for the students to understand what is the census, then dive deeper into what is a hard count community, am I part of it? How can I better understand that? And then on lesson 3, we want them to have the tools and resources to understand how to do community outreach and involve people in their house, in their community, in their school to participate on the census. And lesson number 4, we want the students to walk out with a commitment to participate, with a commitment to be part of the census, and also bring people from their community to participate. I'm gonna go to the next slide. So as you can see in this slide, each of the census lessons that will come, is 4 of them are based on experiential lessons plans. And they, all of them have content and language objectives. They have also a portion for multilingual learners and differentiation strategies, instructional tips, opportunities for students to reflection and assessment. It provides also outreach materials for families, printable handouts, and also a slide deck for each of the lessons. So each lesson will have all these different materials ready for the teachers to have access to. Also, another portion that you'll see throughout all the lessons, it's the importance of cultural responsiveness. And for us, that ideology comes from the pedagogy that cultural responsiveness teaching is a pedagogy that recognizes the importance of including students' cultural references in all aspects of learning. So this is where for us is a drive to incorporate those aspects into it, because we recognize that in our classrooms, not all students are experiencing the census the same. So I want to ask to all of you, what does cultural responsiveness look like in your classrooms? Or if this is something that hasn't never come up, and I think Lisette mentioned that this is not something that not all teachers have experienced, but for those who have or doesn't have, like, would you like to share how might that look like? I can take 2 people.
I can jump in. I think about, for me, one of the things that I struggle with the New York State curriculum, so let's speak to a particular group. So let's speak to African Americans and how they're portrayed in the New York State curriculum. You know, if you teach to the key ideas of the curriculum and you're not doing it through a culturally responsive lens, and you're not thinking about how do students within my classroom see themselves portrayed, the first really explicit mention of African Americans in the New York State curriculum is in 4th grade, and it's around slavery. So, you know, when we think about how we are showing our children, our students themselves, and thinking of how we show them in different ways, you know, are we portraying the achievements of different groups of people, or are we just showing, you know, the awful things that have happened to them, and really how we're unpacking that? You know, are we showing students opportunities to see themselves or people that look like them or think like them or act like them, portrayed in ways that bring joy? And I think oftentimes we don't do that as much as we should. And I think that some of that lies with, you know, just not having those open eyes. You know, I think Lizette mentioned the idea of that lens. And we oftentimes revert back to a thought process that, you know, deals with people who look like ourselves, right? And for people that come from places of privilege, it's much easier to kind of lead that narrative. So I think that we just have to be more mindful, especially with our very young elementary school students, in the texts and in the resources that we choose and share out with them, that we really make an effort to make them seen and make them known that they're seen, and make them know that they bring value to the table, and their story and their history is not just one of, you know, the negatives and oppression.
Yeah, that's very important, and also for us as well. Thank you, Greg, for sharing. If anyone else want to go, I can also go to the next slide. No, you might not want to be talking too much. Okay. What is the lesson? What is the census lesson 1 looks like? So in lesson 1, one of the ways that we, as you can see, is that it has a do now, and the activity, and we will do it together, is a pizza party activity. And you'll see what it looks like in a few. Then during class, the students, they get to see what is the census and what are the questions, and they will dive into those questions with the resources that we have created. And then you have time to wrap up and do reflection. So in this lesson, cultural responsiveness looks like that the teacher has resources to explain to the students what is race versus ethnicity, of gender within the census. And it provides the teacher with the definition. For example, in this case, is explaining to the teacher that the Census Bureau was not federal data need to ask about sexual orientation and gender identity. Because one of the things that we have observed here at Generation Citizen is that right now a lot of the students also, in terms of that question, in terms of their gender identity, they like to identify it and differently that we have formally do it. So it's always also good to have that particular piece of information in case they ask. Also, they're part of citizen status. We recommend the teachers do not ask the students about it because it can be traumatic. So this is the tip that we include in that lesson for lesson number 1. Brooke, let me know if you want to add anything while I'm discussing this one. And then what you do in this lesson is like to reflect and debrief on how the needs of the students were met. How does it impact absent students? Oh, so it seems like I jumped one slide. So for lesson 1, one of the activities is the pizza party. And basically in this activity, it asks the students, if you have to order a pizza and we are a group of 6, you have to take an order making sure that everyone's needs are taken into consideration. Meaning if there are allergies, if you don't eat cheese, and they have to come into a consensus to order this pizza. What this activity does is to help students to understand that there are people with different needs and different sets of things. And it helps them in a fun way to discuss differences and needs through a pizza party. And you have that on the lesson package that I'll be sharing on the chat box. Oh, there you go. So we can actually do it together as a group. We are having an imaginary pizza party next week. So you have 2 minutes to talk to your neighbors and create a list of questions we need to ask our class so that we can place that order in which everyone needs are met and everyone has at least 3 slides. So I'm asking you to, on the chat box, to take those things into consideration and create those questions. We're gonna do this activity for 2 minutes. What kind of considerations do we have to think of? What kind of questions do we have to bring in mind to order a pizza for this like Zoom clock that we have here? Greg, if you can help me with the chat box, for some reason I can't see it, and let me know what people are posting, that'd be great.
So far we have from Lisa, does anyone have any allergies? Is there a budget? Brooke wrote, any dietary restrictions? I wrote, what type of pizza do we prefer? Lizette wrote, has anyone not had pizza before? Which is a good one. See, any more thoughts that anybody has?
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, those are good questions, yeah.
Yeah, and this is a very fun way of including the students and help them to start thinking that everyone have different needs. And Brooke, I know you love this activity, so if you want to add to why we believe this is so fun.
And Lisa added in, what's your favorite topping? And Lizette added in, does anyone not need 3 slices? Which I think is also a good part. You know, we think about everybody, right? Quality and equity are 2 very different things, so well done.
Yeah, I think that this activity we've done with, that Anis and I actually have done with the groups of adults, and everyone is having a blast, like really a lot of fun. And so we can just see students really running with this because most folks love pizza, children and adults alike. And it's something that is really practical that we can really wrap our heads around to see like, all right, all these questions are really important to serve our classroom, which is our community, and our needs, right? And our needs. And it really is it's a great way to show the parallel between why the census is so important and how responding to the census will allow our communities to receive the support and resources that they need to be happy. And so I think it's a great, because the census can feel like an overwhelming, large concept. And so the pizza party is something that really is able to break it down and be a lot of fun for all those who participate. So I really think that lesson 1 is a great way to get students engaged and introduce the census in a way that doesn't feel foreign, in a way that they can really relate to the topic.
Yeah, and also if you don't put like your restrictions, you might not get any slices of pizza. So that also speaks to what Brooke just said. If you are not participating on the census, your community might get resources cut, or they might not get what they need. So this is a really fun and very simple way of starting the conversation with young people. In lesson 2, what the teachers get to do in this lesson is to start to look into the different programs, federal government programs that different communities may need. And they do that by counting for dollars. This is also on the PDF files I'll be sending to you. They also go through what kind of barriers they are for participation, what kind of impact there is when there's undercount people in the community, and then there's a time for the fraction and the list of what and not what. So that's lesson number 2. In this lesson, cultural responsiveness, what it does is asking the student if their family, one of the things that we, one of the tips for the teachers is not to ask the students directly if their family benefits from any of these financial assistance programs, because that can be embarrassing. And also the tip also is for the teachers, like to make general statements and do not ask personal anecdotes, or like ask people, do you have a friend or do you have a family member? So think about those family members that you might see, or like, have you seen like this white card with like a blue letter? Is that something that you can recognize? That's sort of like on this lesson, the culture of responsiveness. Because sometimes, because we want to make the example so like specific, we forget that some students, this can be something that is embarrassing for them. So that's on lesson 2. This is how it looks, counting for dollars. This is the activity. You'll have access to it through the PDF file that I'm going to share with you in a few. And it's basically to look at the report of like the different federal government assistance plans depending on the state. And then they get to identify whether or not they have access to these programs, and then like counting how many people potentially they know that might need this kind of resources. To debrief about the activity and what was challenging about it. So that's lesson number 2. On lesson number 3, now that we have grabbed their attention about the census, we help them to understand what is the census, and also we provide them with specific examples of undercount and why it's important to participate so you can have access to resources. Now is the planning community outreach. And as students, for that, what we use is the framework of RAFT. And in this particular framework, the students, they get to identify their role, who is their audience, format, and topic. And through that particular process, the student, they get to identify who am I as a writer? Like, who is my primary audience? Who am I reaching out to? What kind of communication channels does my audience like and already use? For example, we know that some communities, they love WhatsApp or they like Facebook. So this is what this format does. It helps the students to, brainstorm and to think, how can they, do a community outreach that can actually reach their community. And then on lesson 4, we want the students to walk out with a commitment to community outreach and to participation. And basically there are these cards that you can see that the students get to write their name and commit to reaching out to a person who may hesitate to participate on Census 2020 because, and a specific way that I can do this is by. So the students come out through this lesson understanding the census, what is important, but also with a commitment to do outreach and bring someone that might not want to participate to actually to do the census. So as you can see, each lesson really dives into helping the students to understand, helping to understand their role and why it's important to participate, and also to commit, which is the most important part. Brooke, would you like to add to this lesson?
No, I just think it's a great way to have to really hold students accountable, to have them feel like there's a way for them to make a change that in a way that isn't overwhelming for them, right? And so I think it's important, especially, something that we focus on at Generation Citizen, is really teaching students that not only can you, but you should, and it's really your responsibility to be civically engaged so that you can advocate for yourself and your community. And so that's something that we extend into this lesson for the census as well. That they have the ability to make a change, to talk to the adults in their lives, to make sure that they are filling out the census and understanding that the census will ultimately decide where a lot of money is being allocated. And we want to make sure that their communities are getting the services and support they need to, thrive and be successful and healthy and so forth. So this is a really key part of the lesson packet, because it's that commitment students are taking to, support the adults in their lives to be involved. Absolutely.
And also, there's another portion of cultural responsiveness, like each of the lessons. And it's literally reminding the students when they to identify people who are the immediate community in their network, like, because sometimes we forget that our grandparents are part of our communities, or aunts or cousins, and they too need to complete the census. And also to remind the students to consider that they're hard to count audiences. Again, grandparents usually, if they live alone and things like that, and they get the paper and they potentially don't have someone to help them, it is important for that they remember hard to count communities. And I think this is it. We're gonna take questions now. Thank you so much, you all, for letting me present to you. And I'm gonna start sharing my screen. And I'm gonna share now the census package with you all now.
Perfect, thank you. So let me throw out a question, I guess, and I guess this is kind of posed to everybody, with the idea being that this is a current issue, this is a current event. I know I received in the mail the other day my form for the census, went online, filled it out. Does anybody have any thoughts how, you know, for our vulnerable communities that we're going to maybe utilize school resources to communicate out their census information? Have any districts given any thought about how we may offer that support? You know, I mean, people can't come to our buildings now, right? And utilize our computers to share that. But has anybody kind of given any thought about how we're going to support our vulnerable communities here? Because we don't want them to be underreported or not reported at all. And maybe Dionysus or Brooke, if you can jump in, and even from an organizational standpoint, if you've thought about it at all, just please share out with us.
Yeah, in New York City, we've been partnering with United Way to really help spread the census packet that we have, those lessons, but also to train and support CBOs and other community hubs, because this can be done in the classroom, but it also can be done in an after-school program. It can be done in different committee meetings at religious centers, you know, all different community hubs. And so we've been working with the United Way to share the information with all these different community center hubs so that they can really support with that. A lot has changed in the last 2 weeks. So a lot of the sort of those trainings that we have done are now shifting to virtual webinar trainings, where we are, you know, where we're able to have discussions such as this with many different types of community leaders, and have them, however, they're staying in touch with their communities. You know, I know that each district is very different, but I have a few friends that are administrators and educators that are doing a lot of digital remote learning, Zoom and Google Classrooms, and are still able to implement these lessons through the technology that they've luckily been able to give to their students. I know that that's not the case in every community. And so there are definitely struggles there, and ways that in which we need to really brainstorm how can we continue to reach communities so they know the importance of the census and can get support and feel comfortable and empowered to fill it out. But that's one of the ways that we did it, is just really thinking holistically of, first of all, just doing some mapping and recognizing and targeting the historically hard to reach communities. And so that's where we started off. And we started a lot of this planning and processing this summer. But yeah, definitely now leaning on technology in a way that we hadn't before, just to continue to push this forward and provide support.
I mean, the one thing that I will say, and I can't take credit for this, one of the librarians in Arlington actually shared this. So kudos to you, Dana. Your librarians are sharing out good information. And this probably applies to Lizette as well, because it's something that's taking place up in Dutchess County. I know some of the libraries are pushing their Wi-Fi signal out into the parking lots so that people can actually like drive up to the library during certain times, stay in their cars so that they're socially isolated, and then access free Wi-Fi. So that may be something that we could try to push out to our communities as an option for people. But I know that Adrian's library in the city of Poughkeepsie is doing that. I'm not sure if the other ones within the Dutchess County library system are, but maybe schools could also do that. I mean, we offer Wi-Fi access depending on our particular policies to visitors. So, I mean, I would argue if we have a visitor in the parking lot versus a visitor in the physical building, if we have a public domain for Wi-Fi, this might be another opportunity for us to allow community members to access Wi-Fi to respond to the census if they don't feel necessarily comfortable doing it within their own space or they don't have the technology access.
Yeah, and one more thing that I want to add, and if I believe to Lisette's question, let me see, I think you mentioned just the importance of the census and having students review it with the parents as part of the social studies task. Yes, I think it's a great idea. And also, you can use the tips accordingly to what you think you see fit, like as an explanation as part of the lesson. I think that can be a helpful way of explaining to parents and students why this lesson is important or why reviewing this material is important. That can be a potential solution as well.
Great. Any other thoughts or wonderings from the group? So, I mean, I can't even begin to say, Diana and Brooke, how much we really appreciate your time. The community of educators, the way that people are coming together and just providing good and valuable support at a time like this really is invaluable. And, we're a group right here of social studies leaders within our own organizations. And I think that a lot of what we heard and saw today will be really valuable for our teachers to hear. And so what I will do is as soon as we do have the YouTube link up and live, I will share that out with all of you. I grabbed all your emails at the beginning, so I'll also share those with Generation Citizen. And again, in looking through these materials, I think that they really could be kind of turnkeyed, whether you're doing it with a kindergarten class or if you're doing it with high schoolers. There's so many resources in there that you can really pick and choose from, almost in a buffet style, that there's a lot of value to that. So just a couple of quick housekeeping things on my end before we all say goodbye, and I'll turn it back over, of course, to the two of you so that you can kind of close us out. I am going to share with all of you, if it'll let me pull it up, because I cannot minimize my screen while I'm recording. I am going to share out the schedule of PDs that are being offered for the remainder of the week, and that is right here. And then I am going to additionally share out with you a survey that if you are a repeat person, you may or may not have filled out yet, but it gives us great feedback about the session today and any additional wonderings or requests for offerings to support yourself or the teachers that you do work with. And that's the Google form that I'm posting right now. And also just real quick, and I'm not sure if Adam is listening or not, but Lizette and Dana, with the SSELA curriculum lessons that we sent out, the mini units that we sent out to teachers for free, we crashed Zoom yesterday because we filled the room up to 100 and it froze, and then I got locked out of the room. Even though I was the room owner. I'm not really sure how that worked, but it was like the guy who forgot to put a hide key somewhere, and I could see the room, but I couldn't do anything in the room. So we are going to offer additional sessions. Kindergarten teachers can log on today at 3, same room link. First grade teachers tomorrow at 3 o'clock, same room link, and then second grade teachers. And we are finalizing a 3 through 5 mini unit that focuses in on human rights and how they're playing out in the current pandemic we find ourselves in. So that'll be coming out next week. There'll be 3 sessions, one for 3rd grade, one for 4th grade, and one for 5th grade, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, next week at 3 o'clock as well. So I'll continue to push that out, but I'll turn it over to our wonderful friends at Generation Citizen to give the last word.
I just want to say thank you. I'm also typing our website. in the chat box. Please stay in contact with us. And we would love to keep in contact. And if you have any questions also, Greg, feel free to share our emails if you have any questions about the lesson, or if you get stuck or anything like that. We are more than happy to support you with anything you may need. I shared the lesson in the chat, and also again, we are more than happy to help you if you have any further questions.
Terrific. And again, thank you both for being such great partners to the region. We really do appreciate it. And these resources being so timely and so well constructed, and you just doing a great job stepping us through it. It's really, really appreciated. And we'll see you all again very soon, hopefully.
Okay. Nice
all right.
seeing you.
Everyone stay healthy.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.